My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 29 years old, living in a small town about a 45-minute drive from Seattle. If you looked at my life today, a tidy office just a few blocks from home, a co-founder role at Horizon Biotech, you might think I have it all. But there are things success can never make up for. Like the coldness that had taken root long before I could even name it. From as early as I can remember, I grew up living on the edges of my own family's light. Madison, my older sister, was the center. She was beautiful, gentle, every gesture rapid as neatly as a gift in silk paper. And me, Evelyn, I was always mentioned after the comma, a small footnote beneath the family's perfect portrait. Every holiday, every family gathering, compliments seemed ready on my parents' lips, but only ever for Madison. Madison, you look like an angel in that dress. Madison, your new boyfriend works at a major bank? We're so proud. And me? If anyone even remembered I existed, it was just Evelyn, probably still doing something with computers. At first, I thought I just needed to try harder, score higher, grow up faster. But the harder I tried, the wider the gap grew between me and what they wanted. I still remember it vividly, a rainy day, around when I was 14, standing by the living room window while relatives gathered outside. I caught my father's voice through the rain, sharp as a knife. Good thing we have Madison to be proud of, Evelyn. As long as she stays out of trouble, that's enough. It was then the first time, though not the last, that I asked myself, am I really their child? The doubt didn't spill over into tears. It seeped into me like the persistent dampness of a Seattle winter, quietly, silently, chilling every fiber of me. I grew up wrapped in that half-love. Not outright hatred, but never full belonging either. And just like tiny wounds too small for anyone to notice, it piled up, layer after layer, corroding quietly, until I no longer realized when or how I had begun to change. But that was only the beginning. I had no idea that there would be blows far worse than anything a lonely child could ever imagine. And they would come without warning. As time passed, I was no longer the little girl hiding behind the window. I grew up, step by step, building a life of my own. No one in my family really paid attention, but I had become a co-founder of Horizon Biotech, a small yet ambitious company right in the heart of Seattle. I had survived the early, unpaid startup days, the long nights wrestling with blood-red balance sheets, the polite rejections from countless investors. I had watched teammates give up, friendships fall apart, dreams waver in the first chill of winter. And still, I stayed gritting my teeth, laying each brick myself. My family never asked. Not once did anyone say, "How's your company doing?" Not a word of encouragement when Horizon Biotech survived a major legal crisis in its second year. A blow I spent 6 relentless months negotiating to save us from. In their eyes, I was still just the kid glued to her computer, a blurry shadow beneath the gentle glow of Madison. Madison always knew how to fill a room with laughter. She was effortlessly beautiful, as if destiny itself had gifted it to her. A simple tilt of her head, a small smile, and everyone softened. I never envied her. I only wished just once to be seen through eyes like that. But that moment never came. In recent years, my parents began treating my financial support as a given. Electricity, water, internet, cable. If any bill went wrong, the text came straight to me. "Can you take care of this? Madison's between jobs, she's still getting settled. Help out, okay, Evelyn?" I never said no. Whether I was drowning in urgent financial reports or sprinting toward a new funding round, I still pulled out my card and paid. No complaints. No demands for thanks. Even when the fridge broke down in the middle of winter, or Dad's old car needed emergency repairs, I quietly wired over extra money. No one asked if I was okay. No one considered that running a fledgling company sometimes meant sleeping at the office 3 nights in a row. Whenever Madison struggled with a job change, the burden silently shifted to me. I was the stable child, automatically expected to carry it all. Yet it was precisely during holidays, The times that should have felt like reunion and belonging, that I saw the chasm most clearly. At family dinners, I would sit quietly at the corner of the table while laughter rippled around Madison. Madison, tell us more about the bank job. Madison, that dress looks amazing on you. And me? Just a few obligatory nods. The occasional throwaway question. Works? Still okay? As if they were asking just to be polite. I remember once, during a packed Thanksgiving dinner, a relative praised Madison's beauty and talents, then turned to me and blurted out, "Evelyn's probably good at some tech stuff or something, right?" The whole table burst into laughter, and I just smiled faintly, swallowing it down. No one knew that night. I drove for over an hour through the rain, alone, just so I wouldn't cry in front of them, only to wake up the next morning, pull myself together on time, and pay the late-night electricity bill Dad had texted me about, as if the rainy night had never happened. I accepted it all. I told myself, just keep carrying it quietly, and someday, they'll see. Someday, they'll say they're proud of me. I believed that. I believed it for a very long time. Until the day I called home to say I would be coming early to celebrate Mom's birthday. And my father, the man who once called me his stable daughter, answered with a sentence I will never forget. A sentence that shattered every last hope I had cradled over 29 years of life. It was late March, a crisp morning like any other in Seattle. I had just wrapped up a successful funding round with a major investment firm from New York, something I had spent 6 grueling months securing. I was filled with a rare lightness and a fragile, rare excitement. I decided to reward myself with 3 days off, go home early, and help Mom prepare for her birthday like every year. I called home, still holding a steaming cup of espresso, feeling like a little girl coming home from a long journey. On the other end, the faint sound of the television played before my father picked up. "Hi, Dad. It's me, Evelyn. I'm arranging my schedule to come home early for Mom's birthday. Is there anything you or Mom need me to bring or prepare?" There was a brief silence. Then, my father's voice not loud, but strangely suffocating. "If possible, it's best if you don't come home this year." I froze, the espresso cup nearly slipping from my hand. "Dad, why? I've already arranged everything. Work won't be a problem." I tried to keep my voice steady, as if patience alone could uncover some reasonable explanation. But his next words ripped straight through any hope. "Madison will be bringing her new boyfriend. Ryan is a CFO at a major firm in Denver. Very successful, very polished. Your work, well, it's hard to explain. If you come, people will compare. It'll be awkward for the guests. It's best you stay away." I heard every word, each one a cold blade slicing deep into my chest. I gave a strained laugh and asked, even though I already knew the answer, "You mean I would be an embarrassment?" He didn't deny it. In fact, his voice grew even firmer. "If you insist on coming, then from now on, don't call me father anymore." No hesitation. No regret. Silence filled the call. Only the pounding of my own blood echoed in my ears. I sat there, motionless for a long time, the coffee growing cold in my hand, the soft sunlight outside the window powerless to pierce the numbing chill inside me. I thought about all the days I had quietly shouldered the family, the bills I had paid in silence, the times Madison was between jobs, and the burden was automatically shifted onto me. I thought about the time I had a high fever for 3 days after a minor car accident, and when I called home just hoping for a word of comfort, the only reply was, "Madison's preparing for an important interview. Handle it yourself, and don't cause trouble." I had gotten used to being second, but I had never imagined that even the right to show up on my mother's birthday would be something I wasn't worthy of. I stared out into the empty yard, where spring rain still clung to the budding trees. All the hope I had nursed, that if I just worked hard enough, my parents would one day be proud of me, dissolved with a single sentence. Don't call me father anymore. Once again, I felt like a lost child, standing in the rain, waiting for a door that would never open. But this time, I knew. I would not be waiting anymore. I stood up, picked up my laptop. My hands didn't tremble. Only the cold, steady calm of someone who had finally closed the door on something that had died long ago. Just a few clicks. Just a few simple actions. But for me, it was a ritual of farewell. When the door of expectations slammed shut with a sharp snap, I knew there was nothing left to hold on to. I sat in front of my laptop, the faint blue glow casting a cold light across my face. Each click of the mouse felt like a scissor snip, cutting through the invisible rope that had bound me for all the years of my growing up. I logged into my bank account. The payment management page opened, displaying a long list of familiar entries. Electric bill for March, paid. Water bill for March, paid. Internet and cable, paid. Nearly $12,800. That was the amount I had quietly sent back over the past 2 years. Without a single thank you. Without a single phone call just to check in. Only curt messages. The washing machine broke. Handle it for us. Dad's truck is acting up. Send the money quickly. Madison's struggling. Can you cover next month's electric bill in advance? I used to believe that if I was good enough, if I quietly carried enough, then family love would eventually compensate. But no. All I received was colder, sharper disregard. I moved the cursor to each item. Cancel auto payment. Each confirmation triggered a soft ping. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a cold, clean sound, marking each broken tie one after another. Electricity canceled. Water canceled. Internet canceled. There were no alarms blaring as I cut the connections. Just as there had been no calls or cries when I existed on the sidelines of my family, no one called. No one reached out. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes. A cool spring breeze drifted in through the slightly open window. For the first time in a long while, I realized it didn't feel freezing anymore. I remembered the time I curled up on the office floor at Horizon Biotech for 3 days, burning with fever, trying to keep the company alive after a minor lawsuit. I remembered the winter night when the office fridge broke down, and I ate instant noodles by myself, while the phone buzzed with urgent demands for the water bill back home. I lived through those days, silently, without complaint, only to be repaid by my father with, "If you insist on coming home, don't call me father anymore." The truth was, they had never needed me as a family member. They had only needed me as a spare wallet, someone to deal with the inconveniences they didn't want to face themselves. I opened the transfer history again. $12,800. Without conditions, without demands, only silent endurance. But not this time. This time, I would not endure. I would no longer convince myself that family means sacrifice. No one has the right to treat a person like a lifelong life raft, simply because that person stayed silent. I closed the laptop, stood up, and stepped onto the balcony. The Seattle sky was turning a deep purple, a thin crescent moon floating above the neighbor's roof. Something inside me had changed forever that evening. It was no longer sadness, no longer the desperate craving for approval. It was liberation. I didn't know if my parents would even notice the payments stopping next month. I didn't know if they would blame me, rage at me, or try to pull me back into the endless cycle. But this time, I knew one thing for sure. I would not go back. Not because I hated them, but because I had finally learned to love myself enough not to continue that one-sided negotiation any longer. It was the only gift I could give myself. After 29 years of silent waiting. No more bills. No more demanding calls. No more silent endurance traded for cold, indifferent glances. Only me. And the road ahead. No one's permission needed. No one's approval required. My mother's birthday came faster than I expected. That morning, Seattle was shrouded in thick fog. I brewed myself a cup of peppermint tea and sat on the balcony, watching the tiny rooftops peek through the mist. No plans, no gifts, no messages of celebration. I just wanted the day to pass like any other. Quiet, without demands. Around 5 in the afternoon, as I was flipping through an old book, my phone buzzed. A message from Mom. "Nicole, I think the house just lost power. Can you check it for us? Today's an important day." I gave a faint smile. A part of me had already seen this coming. Not 5 minutes later, another message from Dad. "No power, no water, no internet. Call the service providers immediately. Your mother is panicking." No inquiry about how I was. No. "Are you doing okay?" Just orders. As if I were still their free, on-call tech support. I set the phone face down on the table. The peppermint tea had gone cold, but I didn't feel a shred of regret. Not even a little. The next message came from Madison. "No internet. Guests are arriving soon, and Mom's about to cry. Evelyn, where are you? Please." I stared at that message, calmly, as if watching a distant rainstorm that no longer concerned me. In the past, one message like that would have had me scrambling, booting up my laptop, calling the service lines, maybe even driving through the night to fix it myself. But today, I just sat still. The chaos in that house was no longer mine to bear. Each notification pinged like a slow, solemn bell, tolling for the life I was leaving behind. For the obedient, self-erasing Evelyn who was fading into history. Another message from Dad. "We can't cook. Guests are arriving. Call now." And from Madison. "Mom's really crying now. Please, think of her for once, Evelyn." They still didn't understand. Even at their most desperate. They didn't ask. "Are you okay? Can you help?" They only commanded. Demanded. Assuming I would carry it all just like I always had. But this time, I chose differently. I sipped my cold tea, watching the gray sunset sink behind the neighboring rooftops. That dim light blurred the world, turning it into something distant, unreachable. Around 6 in the evening, my phone rang a video call. Caller ID, Aunt Linda, the only relative who still kept in touch with me. I hesitated for a second, then answered. The screen lit up with the image of a darkened kitchen. Aunt Linda held a small flashlight, her face tired and worried. "Evelyn," she said softly, "everyone's in chaos. No power, no water, no internet. Your mother's panicking. The guests are confused. No one knows what's going on." I stayed silent. No explanations. No defenses. No blame. After a long breath, Aunt Linda looked directly into the screen. "Do you want to say anything?" I lifted my head, kept my voice calm and steady. Dad said that if I insisted on coming back, then I shouldn't call him father anymore. I'm just following his wishes. Aunt Linda froze, unable to respond for a moment. In the frame behind her, I could hear my mother snapping sharply. She must be sulking. Who could be so heartless on their own mother's birthday? I only smiled. A sad, almost invisible smile. Aunt Linda sighed deeply, and just before ending the call, she whispered, "No matter what, I'm proud of you." The call ended. The phone fell back into heavy silence. No apology from my parents? No one asking how things had come to this. Just me, sitting there, in a strange city that had slowly become home, feeling for the first time in my life. I was no longer trapped inside a family where I existed only as a function. I relaxed into my chair, exhaling deeply. An old chapter had closed. By itself. And I didn't need to seal it with tears. I thought that evening would pass in complete silence. But around 7:30 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, a video call from Aunt Linda. Something inside me told me I should answer. The screen lit up with the same darkened kitchen. But this time, there were more faces in the frame. My mother, my father, Madison, and a man I didn't recognize, Ryan. Ryan's face was tense. He wore a simple suit, his hair neatly combed, but his expression betrayed his unease. Aunt Linda tilted the phone so everyone could see me. Mom spoke first, frantically. She's not answering. Someone call the service providers already. Madison pulled at her boyfriend's sleeve, her voice lowered. Hurry up. Don't let Ryan see this get any worse. I sat still, saying nothing. Just watching. Calmly. As if I were watching a play whose ending I already knew. And then it happened. Ryan looked directly at the phone, and his eyes changed. From polite, to astonished, to unmistakably stunned. He stepped back half a pace, muttering as if he couldn't believe his own eyes. Evelyn? Carter? The room fell into breathless silence. I didn't need to ask to know. Ryan had recognized me. 3 days earlier, Horizon Biotech's HR department had sent him his transfer confirmation, moving him from the Denver office to our headquarters in Seattle. At the bottom of the confirmation email, in bold, approved by Evelyn Carter, co-founder, Horizon Biotech. Maybe at the time, Ryan had skimmed past my name among 100 administrative documents. But now, here, in the middle of a powerless kitchen full of chaos, staring straight at me through a phone screen, the pieces finally clicked together. Ryan swallowed hard, then looked at Madison, then at my parents, then back at me, his face turning ghostly pale. Evelyn Carter is the co-founder of Horizon Biotech, Ryan said aloud, the truth bursting out whether he liked it or not. She's my direct superior. Silence dropped over the room like a heavy, suffocating blanket. Mom was frozen. Dad's face flushed deep red. Madison's eyes were wide, stunned. I simply sat there, my gaze calm, as if watching everything unfold behind a pane of frosted glass. Not smug, not vindictive, just a rain of truth. And I didn't have to lift a finger for it to fall. I hope the party still goes smoothly, I said softly, before I ended the call. No accusations. No need to emphasize anything. The truth had spoken, clearly and irreversibly. I set the phone down, leaning back into my chair. Inside me, there was no sense of triumph, no bitterness, only a profound relief, like the feeling of finally letting go of a rope that had long since shredded my hands. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. A message from Madison. I can't believe you chose to do this. I worked so hard for Ryan to have a good impression of our family. Mom cried all night. Do you even realize how important today was to her? I read the whole message and sighed. If they thought that the truth had ruined their party, maybe the party itself had been built on a lie too fragile to survive. I brewed another cup of peppermint tea, stood by the window, and watched the twinkling lights across Seattle's damp, misty night. Finally, I replied to Madison with just one line. You're angry at the truth. Not at me. I put the phone down. That night, I went to bed early. No waiting for apologies. No waiting for someone to finally understand me. Because for the first time in my life, I understood something very clearly. I didn't need their acceptance to know my own worth. I wasn't the one who caused the chaos. I merely stood still and let the truth slip through the cracks that had rotted long ago. 2 days after the disastrous birthday party, while I was reading Horizon Biotech's financial reports, a new email appeared in my inbox. Sender, Ryan Ellington. Subject, apology. I opened it. Evelyn, I don't know where to start, but I owe you an apology. I'm sorry for not realizing the truth sooner. After everything I've seen, I can't continue a relationship built on injustice and deceit. I've ended things with Madison. I have great respect for you, and hope we can maintain a professional working relationship at Horizon Biotech. Wishing you all the best, Ryan. I read it twice. No surprise. No heartbreak. Only a quiet confirmation inside me. Justice, sometimes, takes time, but it always finds its way. That evening, as I was tidying my desk, my phone buzzed. A message from Madison. Can you help me? Ryan's furious and confused. If you said just one word to him, he would listen. Please, save this relationship. For the family, for everyone. The next message was even more desperate. Mom's crying. Dad can't sleep. The family is falling apart. If you just help, everything can go back to the way it was. I stared at the screen, silent. They still didn't understand. Still thought I could and should fix everything. I typed slowly, carefully, placing each word like stones across a bridge I had no intention of crossing again. Ryan didn't leave you because of me. He left because he finally saw the truth. And that truth I cannot change. Nor am I obligated to save something that was already rotting from within. I sent it gently, like letting go of a rope that had bled my hands for far too long. I thought that would be the end. But 2 days later, on a gray Seattle morning, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my mother, Susan Carter, holding a small paper bag. My father, Richard Carter, stood next to her, face cold and stiff. I opened the door, stepping aside without a word. No hugs. No, how are you? Only an awkward tension creeping into the neat little apartment I had built for myself. Mom placed the paper bag on the table, pulling out a printed document. Your father and I have discussed this carefully. If you could contribute about $1,800 a month, the family would be much more stable. Just a small contribution for family, for responsibility. I leaned back in my chair, eyes unblinking. How much will Madison contribute? Mom avoided my gaze. She hasn't recovered from the breakup. She's not stable yet. We can't pressure her any further. But I was pressured for years. I asked, not coldly, not harshly. Just simply, truthfully. Dad slammed his palm on the table. You've always been stronger than Madison. The family needs you. I placed my tea down, my voice steady. Then here's my proposal. If Madison agrees to contribute half, and you both sign a legal document stating that all future family assets will belong to me, then I'll consider it. Mom stared in shock. Dad's face flushed red, his words hissing through clenched teeth. You're bargaining with the people who gave you life? I looked them straight in the eyes. Number. I'm simply done paying for it with my silence and my self-respect. No one said another word. Mom pulled Dad up by the arm, both of them looking shattered. I walked them to the door, without looking back. The door closed behind them. No cries. No pleading. Only a cold draft slipping through the cracks. Carrying the scent of peppermint tea left cooling on my desk. I leaned against the door, exhaling deeply. Not from regret. Not from hatred. Just from letting go. At last, I had put a full stop to a negotiation I was never meant to be part of in the first place. After the last time I saw them out of my apartment, I knew I had stepped through an invisible door. A door I had stood waiting before for nearly 30 years, hoping it would open out of love. But in the end, that door had never existed. The days that followed were more peaceful than I expected. No midnight phone calls. No messages demanding bill payments. No subtle reminders laced with expectations. Just me. And my own life. I went to work at Horizon Biotech, attended strategic meetings, signed new contracts. Whenever I happened to see Ryan in the hallway, we simply nodded to each other. Brief, professional, neither of us mentioning the past. Strangely enough, I didn't feel anger toward Madison or my parents anymore. There was no lingering need to prove anything. I only felt lightness. One weekend afternoon, I stopped by my usual cafe near home. Sitting by the window, I ordered a hot latte and quietly watched the crowds passing by in Seattle's gentle drizzle. On the wooden wall across from me, a small but clear engraving caught my eye. Home is not always a place. Sometimes, it's a choice. I took a slow sip of latte, letting its warmth spread through me. It was true. I didn't choose the bloodline I was born into, but I had the right to choose who would be allowed into my heart from now on. I no longer had a family photo as my phone wallpaper. No longer automatically texted Madison on her birthday. No longer fretted during the holidays over what gift to send my parents just to stay polite. I chose silence, not out of hatred, but because I had let go of hope. And in that silence, for the first time, I could hear the true rhythm of my own heartbeat, not echoed from someone else's expectations, not distorted by standards I never belonged to. Just me, Evelyn Carter, 29 years old, with a life still full of unwritten chapters waiting to unfold. If someone were to ask if I regretted it, why I didn't bend to preserve the family ties, I would smile, softly. I don't trade myself just to hold on to broken pieces. And if someone standing at that same crossroads, torn between blind loyalty and authentic freedom, were to ask me what to do, I would whisper, "You don't need permission to live true to your worth." Because in the end, true family is not the place that demands endless sacrifice. True family is the place where you are allowed to be yourself and still be loved. And if such a place doesn't exist yet, have the courage to build it for yourself.